Anyone missed it? If you don't receive it, please come to me. I'm going to share you after the class. Fine, everyone? Yeah. Okay, so the next part for today is, guys, if you want to discuss with me, not between you. News items is the one what we have seen earlier. Where is that news items? November 30th news. No. Okay, this is what the example we are working on. Okay, coming back to our HTML and CSS part. So this is a simple page what we have created, which is having some news content, having some look and feel getting added. We have seen how do you put the attributes to the elements. We have seen how do we actually use these attributes, what are the individual use of individual attributes. We have seen when do you go with the ID, when do you go with the name attribute, when do you go with the style attribute, etc. attributes we had a look into. Okay, so style is one of the attribute using which you could able to inject any number of CSS properties. That is what we have seen. If you could see here, using the style property, I could able to set a color, I could able to set a background, I could able to set the font size. So like this, any number of CSS properties can be applied. And on the top, we have even looked into the properties of individual attributes. Like for a single element, you can have any number of attributes. For a single element, you cannot have the same attribute getting added multiple times. Right? And every attribute takes a single value other than the style and class properties. So other than this, every other guy will take only a single value. Okay, so those things we had looked into. Now, in this case, we have seen that anytime we are adding the CSS using the style property, what type of CSS it is? Inline CSS, we call it as. Now, anytime we are using the inline CSS, it is not recommended mostly. Why so? We already saw some problems over there. What are the problems we face when we go with the inline CSS? Repetition. Unnecessarily, it is getting repeated multiple times. Duplication, redundancy, and maintenance is not so easy for us. Anytime you want to do the change, you need to do it at multiple places. How do I avoid this? The next concept, the very, very important concept of your CSS, which is called as CSS classes. Okay, so what do you mean by a CSS class, guys? It's very simple. CSS class is a group of CSS properties which is being binded between the open and closed braces. Okay, this is how you're going to bind all the properties into an individual block. Just open and close the braces, define all the properties, whatever you wanted. And for this guy, you need to specify a user defined name. The name of this class is never predefined. Name of the class is user defined. Now you can say anything. I say something called as ABC. So this is a class having a name called as ABC. And every time you're going to give a name to the CSS class, a class name should always starts with a dot operator. Dot class name, open the flower braces, define any number of properties, one or more than anything, and this we call it as a definition of a class. Example, let us take out this paragraph tag. This is what we have added, these type of properties here. Instead of this, you know what I will do? I will go with a dot, say something called as news item is the class name. Is it predefined or user defined? User defined. We are defining it. There is no having, it is not having any predefined meaning. Okay. And what is this dot here? An operator or a syntax. Syntax means a rule we need to follow. As per the CSS, the rule what we have is anytime you're going to define a class name, it has to start with a dot operator following with the name of the class. Okay. And this is how you give. Now, whatever the properties you have defined earlier, let's keep them inside this class. Now I say color background so and so and font size. Like this, we are binding the CSS properties. Any number of properties, you give 100 properties, it is possible. You give one property, it is possible. Okay. Now you're binding them as an individual block. This we call it as a CSS class. Okay. What is the advantages of this guy? The advantage what you have is once you define a CSS class, it can be reused. It can be reused any number of times within the same application. Once you define a CSS class, it can be reused any number of times within the same application. So what do you mean by this? You take out this guy, and instead of adding these many properties inline, you remove this guy and put a property. Guys, can you get it? Just move if you have space. Done? Yeah. So now what I'm saying is, earlier we were putting this style property with style attribute with all the properties. Now instead of this, we simply use another attribute which we call it as class attribute. Class is another predefined HTML attribute using which we can link a class name to the HTML tag. Okay, now I say class name is equal to whatever the class you have defined, simply add this to this. So that this paragraph tag guy, when he is getting rendered, he take his own properties from this class. Whatever the properties you have added, it simply takes over there. Okay, now the advantage what you have is another guy is coming, another paragraph tag is coming. Now, can I make use of the same class again here? Yes, that is what the intention we have going for the class. Now you simply put a class attribute and define what is the name of the class like this. Now you define any content. This is what the advantage we have with your CSS classes. Once you define a class, can be reused any number of times within the same application. Am I clear? Okay, now let us see this practically. Now what we want to do is, no boss, we don't want to define all these properties here. I'm taking out this guy and I want to define a class. I say something called as news content. Anytime we are giving the class names, make a habit of defining a user self-descriptive name for that. Now here, instead of this, I say some AB or ABC, PQR. I say something called as some Prasad. But what do you have? Do you have any meaning for that? No. But when I give something like this, something called as news content, do you have a meaning for that? Anyone who looks into the class name, they get to know that why actually you're defining this class. Okay, so that is the reason it is recommended every time you go with the self-descriptive class names. Clear, everyone? Okay, now under this guy, now you define whatever the properties you have. I simply take out these not this guy, right? These properties I'm taking out. Earlier we have added using the inline. Now I'm cutting them. I'm keeping them inside a class. That's it. Now inside a class, you can have any number of CSS properties. Okay. Now what I need to do, instead of this guy, I don't need to go with the style attribute. How do I link a CSS class to a HTML tag? Using class attribute. Again, it's a predefined attribute equal to inverted commas. Just define the class name, as simple as it is. Now you see here news type. Is it a user defined or predefined attribute? User defined. Remember that day we were discussing about we can even create user defined attributes also here. Okay, fine. Now I'm giving a class. This is how I'm adding. Let us see how it is getting rendered. Come back to the page, reload the page. What is happening, boss? Now, if you see here, why the reason we could able to see the class content on the page? That is not our expectation. Our expectation is class content has to get executed. You need to see the output, but not the class content, isn't it? So how do I do this? The problem what you have is, remember we already talked about the body tag. Any content, whatever you see within the body tag, its responsibility is I need to show the content on the page. Agree or not? Any content, whatever you add junk data, you add anything, my responsibility is I need to add this content on the page as it is. That is what it's happening. What JavaScript is treating, even though you have given a class, a CSS class, but what HTML is treating, HTML is treating it as a simple normal text content. Now, how do I tell my HTML tag saying that, boss, this content is not a normal code, it is a CSS content which should not be shown but has to get executed. So how do I say that? In order to do that, you have a predefined HTML tag which is called as style tag. Style is a predefined HTML tag which is capable of holding any number of CSS class definitions. Okay, style is a predefined HTML tag which is capable of holding any number of CSS class definitions. This is a definition of a CSS class. Yes, now you take out this guy, keep it inside the style tag so that the HTML will understand, okay, this content is not for showing as it is, but it is for execution purpose. And this style tag takes an optional attribute, which is called as type. What do you mean by this guy? The content inside this style is a text content of type CSS. Okay, adding this attribute is optional. You may give it or you may not give it, but it is still treating it as a classes. Am I clear? Okay, so now I take out this class name. Okay, now I have already added this guy, right? I just kept inside this. As I said you, this type option is a optional. Okay, it is not mandatory. You may give it or you may not give it. Still, it is going to treat it as a CSS classes. Now, if you save this guy, come back over here and reload the page. Do you see the class content on the page? Do you see the execution of the class on the page? Yes. Now the advantage what you have is, once you have the CSS class, why don't I reuse this class name? Anywhere I have this paragraph tag with style properties, you simply put the class where you have here, we have it, put the CSS class. Like this. Now the advantage what you have is, come back and reload the page. No look and feel much difference. But the advantage what you have is, now my manager has come. My manager is asking that, boss, this green look and feel is not looking good. Can you please change the look and feel of it? 1 second, guys. I think our class has to be changed, right? You need to ask that. Because you guys have paid the fee, right? Online students, just 1 second, guys. We have some new students. What is this? Okay, so hope everybody understood this class definition. So why the reason we are using the class here? I could able to define a single class, the user defined class, and we could able to reuse the class for n number of times. The advantage what you see is, do you see any duplication of the code? Do you see any redundancy of the code? No. Another advantage, maintenance, as we were discussing. Now, my manager said that, boss, this green background is not looking good. Make it something like red or some different, some gray color. You have to do that. So how do I do that? Do I need to do the changes at multiple, as we have 4 news items? Do I need to do it for all the 4? No. Just to change the property over the class name, obviously it will be affected to each and every other elements. Yes, it is. Now I simply go with the background. I say hash ECC here. So it is what type of adding a color here? Hash code. And why I'm only giving the, what is the maximum values we can give here? 6. Why I'm giving only 3? Same character, if it is getting repeated, we can only give for 3 here. Now if you save this, come back here and reload the page. Do you see every other element got changed with the background here? This is what advantage we get with your CSS classes. Even though just for knowledge purpose, we discussed about the inline CSS, but inline CSS are never recommended. Always go with the class names. Okay. Next thing here, even for heading, we are going with some CSS properties. Can I give the class name again? Yes. Okay. Now what I do, I go with something called as dot news heading. See here, I'm again giving a self-descriptive name there. Okay. I'm not giving just like A, B, C, P, Q, R, X, Y, Z and all. I'm always giving a self-descriptive class name. And any time you are giving a class name, it has to start with a small letter. Make it as a camel case. Camel case in the sense, you have subwords. News is one of the word, heading is one of the word. The separator, what it is recommended is either you can go for hyphen or underscore. Recommended is camel case. Or if first word starts with a small letter, subwords will start with a caps. Okay, so that is how you have to define your, it is recommended. Now, if you say that, what if I don't follow it? It will still work. As per the coding guidelines, this is what recommended. Okay, now I go with the news heading. I take all the properties, whatever you have defined here. I take out this guy, keep inside the class name. Now you do here, save this guy. Now what I do, take this guy and instead of style, what attribute we should go for? Class. Instead of all these properties, simply put the class name. Now you do the same thing for every heading you have. Every time we are repeating it, instead we simply say go with a class name. Okay, save this guy, reload. Look and feel is same, but at the background, advantage is you have another class. You are not rewriting the piece of code or no duplication. Someone might ask me a question, boss, here all the news items are having the same look and feel. What if the third news item, I want to have a different look and feel? In that case, go with a separate class. Okay, define another separate class name. Take that class name with the different properties, what you wanted, and inject that class name to this guy. As simple as it is. Am I clear? And one more. One more thing what you have is, if you see here, inside a single style tag, how many classes I'm defining? 2 classes as of now, but a single style tag is capable of having any number of class definitions. Once you define a style tag, 100 classes, 1000 classes, any number of classes, you can keep it. Another question, how many style tags I can have inside a single page? If you want, you can even do this. If you want, you can even do this. What I have done, 1 class, 1 style tag, 2nd class, another style tag. But now the question what I ask is, if one guy is capable of holding multiple, why the reason you are defining this? It is possible. You can have any number of style tags within a single page. but it's up to you. You can choose the way you want it. Okay, but it's recommended is put a single style tag, keep everything on the same. Another question what you might have is, where is the location we need to keep the style tag? The placement of the style tag can be anywhere within the page, anywhere. Right now, I just kept inside the body tag. I keep it at the very bottom of the body tag. Save this guy, come back and reload the page. I'm getting the execution. Take out this guy, keep it inside the header part. Under the header, after the title, I'm putting this style. Save this guy, come back, reload. Is it working? The style tag can be placed anywhere, including if you see paragraph open is there, right? Between open and close also you can do. Anywhere within the page. Opening style tag and closing style tag will automatically be taken care as like group of classes. You can place anywhere. What is recommended? The recommended place has to be in the header part. Because why the reason header part here? Anytime the web page gets loaded, the HTML or the CSS or the JavaScript, we never have something called as a starting point. People who understood about, who have an idea of C language or C++ or Java, you always have a starting point over there. In your C language, do we have void main method? Yes. In your Java, do we have public static void main method? I mean, the main class. That is the starting points. Now coming to the HTML, CSS and JavaScript, the starting point is the line number 1. It always goes in a sequential way of execution, starting from line number 1, 2, 3, following with all the lines of instructions. Okay. So that is the reason when I'm executing this guy, the first thing what I need to know is I need to know what are the CSS properties so that when I'm rendering an element, I will apply the CSS. Assume there is a container having some blue background, having some content as hello. Do you think it looks good? Initially show the user with hello without any background. Later you add a CSS. That doesn't look good, right? First of all, the look and feel has to get applied following with the content. That is the reason recommended place for putting the CSS is on the top of the header so that on load of the page, first of all, CSS gets loaded following with the content. Okay, see here now, when I'm coming to line number 1, 2, 7, browser knows that what do you mean by news content? Browser knows that what do you mean by news heading? When I'm coming to line number 22, when I'm adding a header, I already know what do you mean by news heading. I will automatically apply it. If you move this style at the bottom, what happens? At line number 22, I'm adding heading 3, but I don't know what do you mean by news heading. So only content will be rendering. Later look and feel will come. That doesn't give a good impression. Okay, recommended place to keep the CSS is on the top of the, within the header part. Any questions? Everyone so clear? Yes, ma'am. #CCC. We already discussed. You missed it? Missed it? Very nice. Okay, let me talk. Okay, someone asking about why the reason you're giving this hash, guys. Remember, okay, just to repeat as a lot of new peoples are there. Whenever you are applying a color, the color can be applied in 3 ways. One is, come on, direct color name. You can specify whatever the color name you know, red, green, blue, pink, yellow, etc. and all. Second thing is, you need to specify the RGB value, red, green and blue. Why the reason only RGB? In the universe, any color can be obtained by mixing the bit of red, bit of green and bit of blue. You can get any combination. And the third way is hash code. Okay. Now coming to the direct color, as I said, red, etc., you can go. Now when I say RGB, how you're going to specify this guy? You simply specify RGB. Say some 20, 34 and 56. What do you mean by this? 20th level of red, 34th level of green, 56th level of blue. They will mix it. Whatever the output color you want, you will get it. Okay. Now, if you ask me, what is the minimum value I can give for a color? What is the maximum value? Awesome. You know everything. Okay. Now you can specify something like this, 0 to 255. Awesome. Okay. Any questions up to the second point? Clear. Now the third way is Instead of giving the direct color values, we can even specify the hash code. But before understanding the hash code, first of all, you need to understand the ASCII values. Full form: American Standard Code for Information Interchange. Okay. Now, what is the use of this ASCII? We know that at the very basics of your computers, we understood that system understands only the binary language or the assembly language, which is in the form of zeros and ones, etc. Isn't it? Now, you know that every character inside the keyboard is being assigned with an ASCII value. Like small a, 97 is the ASCII value. Capital A, 65. From there, 67, 66, like this it will go. Okay. Now, whenever you want to give the hash code, you need to give it as hash following with 3 characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and with a semicolon. Now, what are these 3 again? Again, the first 2 characters are red, second 2 characters are green, third 2 characters are blue. Now, under this first 2 characters, you say 1A. What do you mean by this? System will take 1, the ASCII value of 1, ASCII value of A, it will combine it. The result should be between again 0 to 255. Okay, you give something called BC. It will take the ASCII value of B, ASCII value of C, multiply it. The result has to be between 0 to 255. In the same way, something called 2A, like this. Now, whatever you have given like this, but system will internally convert the binary code of this, and it will take the value only between the 0 to 255. Then it is going to apply. That is the reason you can apply the color either in hash code or the RGB or direct color. As I said you, there is another concept RGBA, which we will be covering when we go to the CSS3. Okay, for now only 3. Now on the top, assume you're giving something called as hash ECC, something like this, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Now whenever you have all the characters, either it can be 0, 1, whatever it is, when you're giving the hash code, if you have all the characters are the same characters, then the shortcut form is only give 3 characters. Okay, the hash code has to be only 3 or 6. When it is 3, if all are same. If it is 6 in the sense, everyone is individual. Am I clear with the question? Hope everyone is clear. Okay, please explain how about ID, how to use it. Akash, like remember whenever, he's asking about the ID attribute. Any HTML tag, whatever we are giving, say something called as some tag. Okay, any tag, whatever you give, in future, we are going to write some piece of code where you want to identify the guy uniquely. Now, say, for example, I want to identify him. Say, for example, I want to give some book to him. What should I say? If I say that, hey, boy, please come up, every boys will come on to me. Isn't it? Now, what I need to say? If I say that, hey, blue t-shirt, please come and take this book. Any number of people will come again. Multiple people will come. Instead of that, if I call him with his unique ID, then you're going to get the value uniquely. Say, for example, his student ID is 002. Now I say that, hey, student, having ID as 002, please come out so that you take this book or etc. Then I'm going to get the value uniquely. In future, we are going to work with something called as DHTML, dynamic HTML. When I'm going to write some dynamic HTML code, through JavaScript, you need to identify the elements which are on the HTML. So for that purpose, we are going to add the ID attribute. Okay, for now, you simply say that using this ID is a predefined property, value is a user-defined property. The value what you give is a unique identity through which you can identify this complete tag. Okay, how do we use it? I'll do it later. But for what purpose we use it? Hope everyone is clear. Am I clear with your question, Akash? Yes or no? Yes, nice. Okay, so hope everybody is clear with this. What do you mean by classes? Okay, super fine. Another thing, guys, there is a concept which we call it as DOM, full form. Document Object Model. Okay, what do you mean by this document object model? And one more thing, guys, whatever the topics I have just discussed now, like regarding the classes, this is all already part of your notes. Okay, let us even go through with the notes once. So hope everybody, whenever we are done with the class, once you go home, Go through the notes, guys. Try to understand what the description is being given. See whether my explanation is matching with the notes or not. Now, if you see, what do you mean by a CSS class? This much of explanation is there. What do you mean by this? A CSS class is a group of set of CSS properties and assigning a name to it. This name is user defined or predefined? Predefined. User defined. Next, the concept of grouping all the required CSS properties as an individual block. Obviously, we are defining them as an individual block and assigning a user defined name to it. We call it as a class. Second thing, every CSS class name should always start with a dot operator. Yes, it is. That is a syntax or a rule. Second thing. Third thing, in a single page, can we define any number of CSS classes? Obviously, yes. Class is a predefined attribute. Obviously, we have another attribute called as class, using which we could able to inject that class to the HTML element. Now, can I inject the same class for multiple elements? Can I inject the same CSS class for multiple HTML elements? Yes. Next, once a CSS class been defined, it can be used any number of times. So this is what the syntax. Okay, dot class name set of CSS properties. Example like this. So for each and every topic what I'm discussing in the class, there is already a notes or an explanation being given in the notes, guys. So please make sure you go through the notes also. It is not just only in the class you sit and go home, nothing doing. Okay, so please go through the notes also. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, after this color values also we have seen, anchor tag, image tag we haven't shown. Okay, we'll come to that. But before that, let us talk something called as DOM. Even for DOM also we should have the notes. Let us see this DOM. Okay, this is what the DOM, even for the DOM also, I've already added the notes for this. Now, what do you mean by a DOM structure? So people keep on calling it as DOM, which is called as document object model. Okay, document object model. So what do you mean by this DOM structure? Till now, when we say this as a complete HTML page, can I represent this HTML page as a tree structure? Yes. Why so? Because everything is under open and tag close, open and tag close, open and tag close. And on the top, you have a parent following with the children and following with the siblings. You take the same example. I will go with some paint. Okay. Let us say, I'm saying initially you have a HTML tag. Under the HTML, you have something called as a header part, following with something called as body part. Agree? Under the header, you have something called as style tag, and you have something called as title tag. Okay, let me put some links also here. These are like this. Like this. Under the body tag, you might have some paragraph tag. And in future, you might have some div tag. I haven't given explanation of the div tag. I'll do later. But for now, assume it's a tag. That's it. Like heading, paragraph, etc. and all. Okay. Now you draw a line for this guy. Okay. Like this. Again, under the paragraph, you might have some another span tag, another IMG tag. You might have it. Okay. If there is another tag here. Under this span, you might have some UL. Under this, you might have some LI. You might have some LI. Like this, you might have some tags. Okay. If you see here, by looking into this guy, can you say who is parent and who is the children? What is the relationship between the elements? Is it is a sibling element, or is it is a parent element, or it is a child element? You could able to see that. One thing. Along with this, we do have some attributes also. Say, for example, if it is a div, we do specify what is the ID he is having. Okay, what is the class he is having? What is the name he is having? Every other property will be part of this structure again, including what content these guy is holding. I mean, whatever the example content we had for the span or whatever the tag, it will be holding. This we call it as a DOM structure. The DOM structure indicates the tree structure representation of your web page. Every web page will have the tree structure. If you see here, this is my HTML code. If I expand this guy, it is having some two childrens, which is your head and body. If I expand my head, under this, you have the title tag following with the style tag. Now you tell me, can I call title and style are children's for header tag? Everyone, yes. Can I call title and style are children's? Those are children's, right? Children's for the header tag. But now individually, if you say relation between the title and style are siblings. They are in the same level. So by looking into this tree structure, you could able to represent the relationship between the elements along with what attributes it is holding, what content it is holding. This is what we call it as a DOM structure. Now, if my question is, can I say that every web page will have the same DOM structure? Come on. Every web page will have the same DOM structure. When I say yes, also you're not moving. Yes, right? Yes, right? How can you have the same elements? Do you say that in every page I'll go with? Yes, the parent level, yes, HTML, header, body, that is okay. Later, someone will have some span tag, someone will have a paragraph tag, heading tag. You can use your own tags inside, right? Now, can I say that every web page will have only this type of structure? No, the structure will be changing according to the page what you are developing, according to the content what you are adding. It is not mandatory to have the same type of tree structure representation or same type of DOM structure for every HTML page. It keeps changing according to the content or elements what you are using within the current page. Am I clear? Everyone? Okay, nice. Another thing what you have is, till now, when I'm calling a tag, now I call this title as a tag. Yes or no? Yes, I may call this guy as an element also. Why I'm not calling as a tag here? The reason is, when I say tag, there are two things here. This is an opening tag. This is a closing tag. Agree? Now, when I say tag, it is not representing the complete thing. Now, when I say an element, what do you mean by an element? These guy completely from the opening tag to the closing tag, we call it as a element. Okay, that is the reason sometimes I'm keep on calling as element. What do you mean by this? I'm representing the complete from opening tag to the closing tag, including its content. Okay. Third point, the element is participating within the DOM structure. Is the title tag, title element, whatever I said, is it is a part of a DOM structure? Yes, it is. That is the reason we call it as a DOM element. So anytime you're representing a tag, either you call it as an open tag, close tag, the complete part, or you can call it as an element, or you can call it as a DOM element. All three are representing the same, nothing much difference. Okay, simple tag means you have two things. Element means from ending to starting to ending. DOM element means any element which is part of the DOM structure, we call it as a DOM element. Clear, everyone? Nice. Next, online students, hope everybody is so clear till here. In case of siblings, there may be variations. Not only siblings, anything can vary. Difference between element and tag. Now you should be clear, Ketan. Notes. Sir, where is the notes? Git, right? The Git, I have already shown that, guys. Okay, let us open our github.com. Everyone, whoever got the collaborator access, you can directly open your github.com. You should able to see Durga Prasad UI classes. Under that, there is a folder got created for 8:30 a.m. December folder. Under that, you have a notes folder. Under that, you have multiple versions. I recommend you go with the notes version one, but it's up to you. Everything is having the same thing, but with a different way. If you have time, you can even explore them. Just open the notes version one. You should be able to see the PDF. Clear, Tejashvi? Got it. Next. Collaboration. Collaborator, right? Okay, so Amrinder, like in order to be a collaborator, please ping me on the Telegram. Once you guys got added to the Telegram group, then I will give you the collaborator access. Okay. Any more questions on this technical part? Is everyone so clear? Okay, that's good. So what is our next part? And one more thing, guys. Anyone having any idea about coding indentation? Anyone? What do you mean by coding indentation? Python, we have to strictly follow the indentation. Okay, but what is you mean by indentation? Very simple, guys. Coding indentation means giving the required spaces, required line breaks wherever it wanted. Okay, coding indentation means wherever it needed a space, you give it out. Wherever it needs a line breaks, you give it out. Giving the required line breaks and spaces wherever you wanted, we call it as a coding indentation. Let's take this practical example. This is what the page we have created. Okay, now what I say is, this is what I'm defining the page. Do you see any spaces or tabbing, line breaks, etc. and all? Even not even line breaks. I don't even need to give this line breaks also. See here. Here I'm giving like this. Okay, now if I save this guy, come back to the page, reload it. Do you see any type of output change? No. But someone asked this, is this code is indented? One second, please. Okay, someone asked that, is this code is intended? No, boss, it's not intended because we haven't given the line breaks or spaces. What do you mean by this guy? It is always recommended whenever you are adding a children, you know, a lot of people say this guy. I mean, make a habit of this guy, right? As you are into the very starting of HTML page creation, make sure you strictly follow this. You know what people will do is, in general, okay, when I say HTML, opening an HTML tag, under that you have something called as header tag. Under that you have something called as some title tag. Under that you are going to add some piece of content. Now you close the title tag. Now you close the header tag. Now you close the HTML tag. This is not at all recommended way of writing the code. What is recommended? Anytime you are opening a tag, make sure you immediately close the tag. Now you go inside, start writing inside this. The reason why I'm saying is, in future, one element will have 1,000 elements. That type of coding we are going to write. We may say something called as opening a div. Later I'm opening a span. Later I'm opening a UL. Later I'm opening a li. Later I'm opening a table. Later I'm opening some TD. Lot of tags are opening. When you are closing, do you think it is easy for you to understand what tag I'm closing? No. So if you say that I open HTML tag like this, now you start writing inside this. There is no chance you will skip one of the closing tag. Isn't it? Now under this, I say heading part. Under this, I say something called as title part. Okay. Under this, I'm going to add some piece of content. This is what recommended. Another thing, if you see here, I'm following some indentation. I'm not writing to the very immediate line. Whenever I want to write inside this tag, press a tab. Don't go with spaces, because if it is spaces, you need to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times you need to press the keyboard. Instead of this, simply press a tab, so that every time you'll be having a unique space here. Now I open something called as header part. Okay, close the header part. Now you start writing inside. Whenever I'm writing anything, press a tab. Now you write something called as some title. If you want to discuss with me, guys, not between you. Okay, this is what. Now the advantage, what you done with the discussions? Okay, now by looking into this, what is the advantage you see here? By just looking into this, can I say that title is the children of head, head is the children of HTML? Okay, that's a simple example. By looking into this, is it easy for you to understand who is the sibling and who is the children, etc.? No, boss. But if I write something like this, do you think, is it not easy for you? Yes. See here. If it is inside, yes, it is a children of this. This is a children of this guy. So this way of coding is always recommended. You know, once you go into the real time, actual working location, they will give you a training on what do you mean by coding guidelines, how to write the code, etc. and all. But what I suggest is, Once you learn the technology, later you go with the coding guidelines. Instead of that, while learning the technology, why don't you learn with coding guidelines? Recommended, right? So I make sure I tell you everywhere, wherever there is need of a coding guideline, I will tell you over there, highlighting that. Please make sure you follow the same. Okay, for now, when you're writing the HTML tag, this is how you need to write, and you need to follow the indentation. Element should be inside, the order should be there. Don't give unnecessary line breaks. Here I gave unnecessary line breaks. Don't give those things. Okay, so these type of things should be avoided. And whenever you are defining a CSS class, CSS property with a value, recommended to give a space after the colon. If you ask me, what if I don't give? It will still work. As per the coding guidelines, after an operator, there should be a space. That is the reason colon space need to be given. Recommended again. Okay, anywhere you write the CSS classes, recommended that put the property and put the property name following with value. Colon has to be with a space over here. Any questions? Okay, so make sure you strictly follow that, guys. And anytime you're sending me the assignments, I will make sure to check these type of coding guidelines also strictly. Okay, and as you have done with these things, shall we go with one of the assignments? Okay, let me go with an assignment here. The first assignment. So what I wanted is a simple container like this. I would like to take some student details. Say something called as name, Mr. Raj, age, say some 20, gender, say some male, location, say some I want something like this, guys. Can you do this? I want to have minimum 10 student details, okay, and a line between the content. Now, only thing what we haven't seen is how do we draw a line between the contents, okay? We have a predefined tag, okay. After this H3, I simply say something called as HR, which indicates horizontal line, which is again a self-closing tag, but it's optional. Save this guy, come back and reload the page. Do you see the line now? Yes. Now you have a line following with, you have, now you have the line. Now you can add this content according. You know how to get the line breaks using the BR tag, etc. and all. Clear, everyone? You can have the background, colors and all. It's up to you, whatever the thing you want. But I'm going to look for the coding indentation, how you're following and how the content is coming. Okay. For this first assignment, as I haven't ever shown you how to submit the code, I have only shown you how to pull the code from the GitHub, but I haven't shown you how to submit the code. So as the first assignment, you just send as an attachment. From the second assignment, tomorrow I will show you how do you submit the code into the Git, so that I will directly take from the Git instead of sending an attachment to the mail. Okay. So everyone, whoever is done with the assignments, please make sure you submit the assignment with a subject. Under the subject, please do mention that 8:30 a.m. so that it will be easy for me to differentiate between multiple group of people. Okay, 8:30 a.m. you need to specify. And what else need to specify? Say something called as assignment 1. Okay, so please mention this. And my mail ID is, okay, so you have to send the mail, assignments to this mail. Okay, webdev.prasad is my mail ID. You just need to put this and put on the subject and put the attachment for now. For now, HTML file, whatever you create, add it as an attachment. I will check it, I will review it, and I'm going to give the feedback for you all. In next line, we have to give required space example function in Python. Okay, you are talking about the indentations, right? So any questions here, guys? No questions? Okay, so we will pause for today. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about different ways of, guys, ma'ams, done with the packing? Okay, different ways of what? Different ways of defining classes. Okay, till now, I have shown you only one way of defining a CSS class, dot with class name. But there are 4 ways of defining a class. Some ID based, tag based, class based, and inline based. 3 ways of classes, but total 4 ways of defining the CSS. Those things I'm going to talk. And if time permits, the very important topic inside your UI stuff, which is called as debugging tool. How do you debug the HTML and CSS? If at all I have to do the changes dynamically when the page is running. If you right click on a page, when you say inspect, some tool will come. This tool I'm going to talk about. A very, very, very important tool. If you understand this tool, you develop the web pages just like that. Okay, so a lot of advantages you have with the tool. What we can do, what not we can do, how do we do, those things I'm going to discuss along with this. And if time permits, I will even talk about CSS priorities. The reason why I'm talking about the topics which I'm going to discuss tomorrow is, if you have some time, you can even go through with the notes so that you can get ready by tomorrow. Okay, so please make sure everybody go through with the notes. If you have any type of questions, I already gave this, but again I'm giving. If you have any questions, this is my Telegram ID. You can ping me. I can reply back to you. Okay. Have a good day and bye for today, guys. Anyone having issues with the GitHub offline students, come to me. I can help out.